Welcome to Luther Sewell's Woven in Time by Dugan. Today, my guest is my another brother. Um, this brother's name's Dwight. He's just younger than me. He was born after I was born next, but it took 12 years for mom and dad. Um, for 12 years, they knew they couldn't do any better, so they didn't have any more. And then they thought, well, maybe we can, but they didn't. They tried it twice, and here I am still.
I'm another brother by the same mother.
And so today I want Dwight to tell some stories, or in his case, he wants to read stories that he's written. He's a very good writer. Uh, the difference in his writing and mine, his vocabulary is greater, and he can spell the words that he says. I can't spell the words that I say. So, Dwight, what do you have that you'd like to share with us?
Well, first I want to tell you that I'm wearing this hat today in remembrance of my granddaddy Johnson. I never saw him go outside the house without a hat on.
And it was pretty close. His hat, Granddaddy Johnson's hat, was a little closer to a blue than that, but it was a grayish blue hat. He wore the same hat. Every hat he ever bought was the same hat.
Now I'm gonna take off the hat now because I don't generally wear it. You can lay it down over there. And
I may keep this if he don't.
And I do know lots of big words. I know words like mayonnaise, typewriter, lots of large words that aren't commonly used. For example, mayonnaise. Dugan, you know what mayonnaise is?
Yeah.
That's like you go down a field and go down past the field and you see a bunch of cows in the field. You go, man, there's a lot of cows out there. That's the words I know. Anyway, I just wrote some various things I remember down. And
now, are you going to tell about going to school, first day at school?
No, not right now. I might, but right now I'm telling you about growing up on Mizell Road. In 1949, Fred Never bought 2 or 3 acres at the corner of Denny Road and Derby Place. They bought the land from Charlie Snoffer. They intended to build on this property, which was only 100 yards west of Ed and Holdy's place. But in 1950, Fred bought 5 more acres on Mizell Road. This property was about 450 yards north of the Fox property. The land was generally flat at the top of a gradual hill that rose from Denny Road. Fred's northern property line began at the crest of a hill and it began to drop in elevation. The land fell off from Fred's more precipitously to the north than it did to the south. The property gradually sloped to the south and to the west. The west property line was a small creek. West of this creek was the land rose fairly steep, fairly sharply up toward Church Street. Church Street was about another 300 yards on the other side of that creek.
And let me add, Mizell Road was a dead-end dirt road. As a matter of fact, it dead-ended our driveway at that time. And Church Street was a busy paved road, 2-hole lane going both ways. Oh, well, 1 lane going each way. But it was a busy street. It was one of the arteries to get the people from Greensboro into the northern part of the northern part of the county. Okay, I'm sorry, Dwight.
That's okay. Caused me to have to think now. Mizell Road it was a dirt road, and in the summertime, our house set way back off the road, but when a car would come by, and the cars didn't even come by that often, but when they did, big rolling tumult of dirt or dust passed by, and it would waft toward our house, but it wouldn't get to our house because we had lots of bushes and trees in front of the house. But sometimes in the summer, the people on the road would get together and they'd pay a man who would come and he would squirt oil up and down the road to suppress the rise of the dust. Well, in June of 1962, we were living there. I was a happy guy. I was 5 years old. I was the coolest guy on the street. And actually, I had the street to myself. most of the kids there were Dugan's age, were 12 or so years older than me. So I just had a great time. Just had the run of the place. Everybody knew me, and I could go next door to my Uncle Herb's and Aunt Bob's and walk in just like I belonged there and get whatever I wanted. And I could go to,
And if it was mealtime, you ate there, wherever you were on the hill. At mealtime, you ate wherever you were.
for a while on the other side of Uncle Herb's house, and next door to it was a house that he had built first, and my Aunt Ruby lived there. She had a boy named David and a girl named Jane, and I could go play with them or do whatever I wanted to there anytime. Across the road from Uncle Herb's was Uncle Gravy's house. None of these are real names. That's just what they called them. Uncle Gravy and Aunt Laverne, and I was welcome there. I could play there. Aunt Laverne had a little girl named Jeanette, and she was 2 years older than me. We played together.
And that was his cousin too.
Yeah, Jeanette did never. She had a bicycle, but she couldn't ride it. That always troubled me as a little boy. Anyway, in front of us was another.
Let me tell you a story about the bicycle that she couldn't ride. Dwight was out there one day, and he wasn't any more than about 5 or 6 years old. Do you remember when this happened?
I don't think I was 6. I was more like 4 or 5.
And he was trying to ride Jeanette's bike, and she wouldn't let him play on her bike. It was her bike, and she wouldn't let him.
She had training wheels on it. What a girl.
So Uncle Herb saw this, and he didn't say anything to anybody. I remember he had a 56 Mercury, and seldom ever did we ever drive into each other's driveway because we lived 200 feet from each other. We walked across the gardens, and that's how we visited. But before long, Uncle Herb in the afternoon, Uncle Herb showed up to in our driveway, pulled that 56 Mercury right up behind Dad's car. And he got out, and we noticed somebody in the driveway, and it was Uncle Herb. We went out, and he said, "Get Dwight out here." And so Daddy called Dwight. And by that time, I guess Mom was curious too that what's going on. She was out there. Uncle Herb opened up the trunk of his 56 Mercury, and
It was green, wasn't it?
no, it was white. No, that 53 Mercury was green. The 56 was two-tone black and white. And he opened it up, pulled a bicycle out. He saw what had happened. That Jeanette wouldn't let Dwight play on her bicycle, so he went to Western Auto, bought a bicycle, brought it back, and gave it to Dwight. And he said, "Here, you don't have to worry about anybody running you off of that bike anymore, off of your bike anymore." Dwight learned to ride a bicycle, and he had a bicycle without training wheels on.
Yeah, I don't remember ever not knowing how to ride the bike. I just got on it, and pretty quickly I was riding it. And the tires, I remember he gave on that bicycle from Western Auto were solid. They weren't inflatable. They were solid tires. And I rode that bicycle till the tires wore down on it.
I didn't realize that. I didn't know that about that bike.
Yeah. We had and then across the street from us lived a family. At first, the family was the McCraw. Actually, my granddaddy Johnson built the house across the road, and he owned it. But he let my uncle Luther and my aunt Norma and their family, they lived in it across the street. It was a 2-story house, and but I don't remember them living there. The first people I remember living there were a family called the McCraws. There was Jesse McCraw and Miss McCraw, his wife, and Vernell was their son. I don't remember the rest of them. So everybody around us pretty much was family in one way or the other. And I just had the run of the place. Our driveway was real long and real, dusty and dirt. Well, it was until it rained, then it was muddy. But I can remember as a little boy riding that bicycle on that driveway out there, and then down the road, and being barefooted all the time, and coming in or coming back, and my feet would just be crusty with dust. And we had a well house or a pump house behind our house with a spigot that stuck out from it. And and a rock underneath where the water fell, and I'd put my feet under there and wash my feet off. Sometimes Mama would employ me to go up and down the street, up and down the road, and or out through the woods, wherever, and collect rocks. I had a wagon, and I'd collect rocks, and I'd bring them home. And we had massive holes in our driveway. I'd put those rocks in the driveway. It was on a summer June day in 1962, and I'm gonna read this part. Uh, we Mama, I didn't know it at the time, but she was going to have a baby, and people were trying to figure out names for it. And some in the family wanted the baby to be called Herbert Troy, after my Uncle Herb. And then some even wanted the baby to be called David Lafayette. The ultimate resolution was to give him the name of David Herbert Sewell. The warm, peaceful June day languished long into this afternoon. Beneath the hot sun, I played with my wagon on that dusty driveway. My feet and legs were clad with red dust. The afternoon sun still burned bright when Mama called, "Dwight, Dwight, come get your supper." Parking my wagon under the redbud, I stood on the rock beneath the pump house spigot. The cold water spewed onto my crusty feet, and I rubbed off the day's accumulation of dirt. Next, I stuck my head under the spigot for a quick drink of water. A voice of command came from the screened back porch. "Where are you? Dwight, get in here." Hurriedly, I wiped my feet in the grass, and I trotted to the house. Dugan and Mama were on the screened back porch. The back porch, it was a humid, hot day, and when the days were so hot, we didn't eat inside the house. We'd eat on the back porch where we could get a little air. The porch had a painted plank floor. At the far end sat the Ringer washing machine and a long thing. The long thing, in the middle of the porch sat an enamel-coated table with chrome pipes which served as legs. Across the other end of the porch sat a white chest freezer. While I sat at the corner of the table, Dugan opened the freezer looking for ice cream. Thick, frosty air rose up. The table was half covered with tomatoes and cucumbers from the field. The tomatoes ranged in maturity from partly green to deep red and mushy. Mama opened a loaf of wholesome bread and picked up a tomato to slice into sandwiches. Mama wore a loose-fitting print cotton blouse with no sleeves. She drew the butcher knife toward her as she cut the tomatoes. In an instant, her fluid motion became erratic and stiff. Mama winced. "Ooh." She dropped the knife, pulled her bleeding hand to the chest, and with bated breath, she said, "Dugan, run to Bob's and call an ambulance." We had no telephone, so Dugan darted out through the front of the house and was gone. Mama sat in a cane-bottomed chair and continued to breathe in staccato bursts. "Whew, this hurts," she continued. "I wish to goodness Dugan would hurry up." Aunt Bob returned and she went on, and Mama would go, "I wish to goodness that Dugan would hurry up." Mama got a coal wash rag. Then the ambulance bounced up our driveway, trailing a plume of dust. Mama was strapped on a gurney and wheeled into the ambulance and down Mizell Road. Now, I wasn't particularly worried about the events of this afternoon. I was in awe. Mama seemed to be rock hard. She hoed, she pulled Johnson grass and the flowers, and burnt down entire fields of broom sage. She even took me into interminable briar patches to pick blackberries. A pricked finger did not measure up to being taken to the hospital in an ambulance. 2 days later, Mama and Big Fred pulled a big winged blue Impala into the driveway with a new baby boy. He was named David Herbert Sewell. He was little and pale, and everyone was so proud of him. To hear Eva telling her friends his birth was nothing less than a medical miracle. Uncle Herb laughed and told everybody after whom he was named. At the mention of Herbie, the smile on Big Fred's face broadened. Big Fred's buttons nearly popped off any time Herbie was around. I can remember Big Fred carrying him to the grocery store and to Bill Fields and to Harvey Gregory's, the local country stores where he would always have Herbie up on his arm, carrying him. He carried him everywhere. Herbie had such white hair. He would go out in the garden. We'd lose him sometime. We couldn't find him.
And white skin too. He's almost invisible. He is so white.
But we could see him because of that white. He shined. So we could see him even if he was a long ways away. We could find his little white head out in the garden. Big Fred carried this white-headed boy everywhere. On quiet spring mornings, nothing was more common than seeing Fred driving his blue Chevrolet truck down Denny Road, a weathered brown arm resting out of the driver's window and a white-headed waif bouncing around in the cab. Little Herbie was wry and in perpetual motion. Shortly, he grew cotton white hair. He liked to wander over the hill, but he was seldom lost, for his white hair was like a beacon. You could see that bouncing white head bobbied up and down way out in the field or out in Bob's yard. Herbie had the peculiar tendency to sleep on all fours, and anywhere that he took a notion. He was discovered behind the barn, in the shade, sleeping on his forearms and knees. He was found under the big oak by the bathroom window, asleep on his knees, drawn up under him, and his head on the grass. Once, when he was especially hard to find, Daddy located him under the house, asleep.
I didn't know that, and that's a pretty tight place because the house was a crawl space.
Well, it was a crawl space, but we had a basement under the back.
Oh, okay, it was in the basement.
Yeah, under the
one
back
room
bedroom.
had a basement under it.
Periodically, Daddy would drive to the Bear's Den to get haircuts, and I would go with him to get a haircut. The Bear's Den was on Summit Avenue, immediately south of Rankin School. The two-story barber shop was on the west side of the street, about 50 yards south of Spry Street. It sat across a two-lane road, and on the other side was a cow pasture. Farther south was a drugstore, laundromat, and dry cleaners, furniture store, and various stores. The Pure Oil station was there that Neener won a television set with Daddy's gas card. Ralph Knuckles had a diner that served great hot dogs and barbecue
and chicken sandwiches
and memorable chicken sandwiches. You could get a plate lunch there too. My favorite was their 10-cent gravy sandwich. Let me see if I can tell you any more about that.
Well, tell us about the trip to when Johnny gave you a sucker that time, and then we'll close it, okay?
I went to the barber shop with Daddy at the Bear's Den. You go in, it'd be a hot day, and you go in there, and they had these louvered window shades, that covered it, and they were kind of a greenish cast. And he had a big air conditioner blowing in the back of the room, blowing up that way, a window air conditioner, which was unusual at the time because we didn't have an air conditioner. Most people didn't have air conditioners at that time. So it was quite a cool little haven you go into. You go from the bright sunlight into the darkened enclave or conclave of men. And there would be Johnny in there. He's a big, robust guy with black, greasy hair, combed straight back. And there was Mr. Sewell in there, who was a barber. Alton Sewell. And
but spell their name different than us. They didn't put the A in.
Yeah.
They were still related, but they
didn't. They weren't educated.
Yeah.
What could I say?
Well, they had more money. I think they gave us A's in our name because
we didn't have money to compensate.
Yeah. They gave us an A instead of money.
Well, anyway, one day I got up there to get my hair cut. Johnny set a board across the seat so I could sit up on it and be high enough. And he had a razor strop down beside his chair, and he'd sharpen the razor, and he'd soap around my neck, tie that thing around my neck, that tissue paper, and immediately I was on guard. I was alert and kind of itchy around. And he'd start shaving me, and I was like, "Boy, be still, be still." I was like, okay, but the hair would get on my nose. And finally, I got my hair cut, got down, and he gave me a sucker. I was impressed at that. And Daddy said, "What do you say to him, son?" I guess Daddy wanted me to say, thank you, but I didn't think of that. The first thing I thought of was, you got any more? Everybody liked that response. So after that, I always get extra suckers from that man.
Okay, from that, let's close this one off,
Okay.
and maybe we'll get back with Dwight. He'll tell us some more stories. But
All right. Somebody's calling me. I guess I got to
uh-oh,
answer.
yeah, I got to answer. But for right now, please like, subscribe, tell your friends about us, and we're trying to get better. Um, and we got more history of the family hopefully coming up soon. But like, subscribe, ring the bell, do all the things that other people tell you to do that I'm not smart enough to tell you. But most of all, be pretty.
Bye.